the pro-life thing, you're only pro-life up until the kid is born.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. It's Antonio D. Miles here. And yes, we have a very interesting topic today. But before we get into it, just want to remind you guys can listen to the podcast on Apple Music, Google Podcast, and Spotify, and other major streaming platforms. And other than that, we're just going to get right into the topic. And actually, I want to introduce the lovely lady who's going to be talking the topic with this, Nelly.
Hi, I'm Yaneli. My first time being on a podcast, so I'm going to be a little nervous, but I'm ready to get into this topic. I have a lot to say.
Awesome. And would you like to let them know what we're going to be talking about today?
Today, we're talking about the very touchy subject of abortion and the whole Roe versus Wade situation that's going on.
Yes.
Yeah. It'll be a very interesting topic.
Gotcha. So yes, if you guys don't know, there's a big thing going on with abortion happening right now. We're going to be knowing more about it in June and July, what's going on. But speaking of abortion, actually, if you guys don't even know what abortion is, basically, which, you might be living under a rock, but hey, we all know different types of knowledge here. So abortion is basically terminating a pregnancy. Would you agree?
Yeah. The termination of a pregnancy, whether that be, it could go into miscarriage, which most of the time is accidental, or you could choose to terminate a pregnancy.
Exactly. And actually, before we go into a little bit of the history of abortions, Nelly, what's your thoughts on just abortions in general? What's your thoughts on it?
Well, I feel that as a woman, especially in this modern day that we live in, we should have a choice of whether we want to decide to bring a human being into this world or not. Of course, there should be the limits. I don't think late term abortions and stuff like that should be allowed. But if you choose, I think it's 10 weeks that you have to choose to have an abortion. I feel like it's totally up to the woman, because only the woman knows why she's choosing to either keep the pregnancy or not. Okay.
So do you think abortions are good or bad, or what's your thoughts
I don't really think they're good nor bad. They're just something that has to be dealt with between the woman and her doctor.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And that's what's like the whole debate between like pro-choice and what's the other one called?
Pro-life.
Pro-life, right? And can you help the audience like describe the difference between what pro-life is and what pro-choice is?
So pro-choice is just pretty self-explanatory. It's just knowing that the woman has the choice, that being, again, whether she wants to keep the unborn child and go through with the pregnancy or not go through the pregnancy. A lot of people that are pro-choice are just whatever the woman wants to do, whatever is good for her. And then pro-life would be that a lot of people argue about when life starts. And I've heard that argument that life starts at conception, but I beg to differ, because that it's like, I don't want to call the fetus a parasite, but in a way, if it kind of is. They need the mother in order to survive up until birth and even after.
Facts.
So to me, life really doesn't start until that baby is brought into this world. But that's pretty much what pro-life is, that it doesn't matter. It just, as soon as the baby is conceived, it is life already, and they'll want to call it murder or, use very harsh terms like that when a woman decides not to want to keep a pregnancy.
Definitely. And usually those things are like from really religious sects,
right.
But I want to get into the history, you guys, if you guys don't know about the history of this whole abortion laws and a woman's right to abortions and not right. And it comes from a famous law called Roe versus Wade, right? And I'm gonna read a little bit about it so you guys can understand what it is and what it means and things like that, okay? And this is from Wikipedia, right? And so the decision involved the case of Norman McCorvey, known by the legal pseudonym Jane Roe, which is basically known as the opposite for John Doe, they use for women, Jane Roe, right? And so In 1969, she became pregnant with her third child, and McCorvey, or Roe, wanted an abortion, but she lived in Texas, where abortion was illegal except when necessary to save the mother's life. Her attorneys, Weddington and Coffey, filed a lawsuit on her behalf in U.S. federal court against her district attorney, Henry Wade. So that's where we get Roe versus Wade, which is against her district attorney, right? Alleging that Texas's abortion laws were unconstitutional. This is what her attorney said. A three-judge panel of the U.S. District Court of the Northern District of Texas heard the case and ruled in her favor. Yet the district court ruled against two others who were also represented by Weddington and Coffey alongside Roe. Weddington and Coffey, which are her attorneys, appealed their partial losses to the U.S. Supreme Court, while at the same time, Wade cross-appealed his partial loss to the Supreme Court. So they basically both took their losses and wins to the Supreme Court, the highest court in the United States. And then in 1973, this is how far back this goes, ladies and gentlemen, 1973, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a 7-2 victory decision in Roe's favor, ruling that the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment to the United States provides a right to privacy that protects a pregnant woman's right to choose whether to have an abortion, right? They say that 14th Amendment is a privacy law that helps a woman have the right to choose whether to have an abortion or not. Gives a woman her right, no one else the right. It also ruled that this right is not absolute and must be balanced against government's interest in protecting women's health and prenatal life. The court resolved this balancing test by tying state regulation of abortion to the 3 trimesters of pregnancy. So if you guys don't know, most men don't know what a trimester is. A trimester basically is being pregnant for 3 months, correct?
Correct.
And each 3 months is more development in the baby, okay? Just to help, us men who are listening to this information understand what a trimester is, right? And so the court resolved this balancing test by tying state regulation of abortion to the 3 trimesters of pregnancy. During the first trimester, governments could not prohibit abortions at all. During the second trimester, governments could require reasonable health regulations. During the third trimester, abortions could be prohibited entirely, so long as the laws contained exception for cases when they were necessary to save the life of the mother. So they're saying, obviously, during the third one, they can completely prohibit abortion, except in order to save the life of the mother, right? The court classified the right to choose to have an abortion as fundamental, which required courts to evaluate challenged abortion laws under the strict scrutiny standard, the highest of judicial review in the United States, right? And so, what's your thoughts on that, on all that information right there?
Well, I mean, I agree. The woman should have the right. I do also coincide with the limitations of each of the trimester, because as the trimesters go on, the baby is more fully developed. So, I think then the trimester is 12 weeks, something like that. And I feel like that's good that they limit up to you could have an abortion if you like up to those 12 weeks. After that, it's a little bit more iffy because the baby is more fully developed. And I do agree, if the mom's life is at risk, more so if she already has other kids, she has a life and all that, then the mother's life should come first rather than, the unborn child. It's just, to me, it's common sense. But many, it's a huge debate. That's why we're in the situation that we're in.
It's very, very, very touchy, And honestly, before I actually kind of read that and learned about it, I thought the Roe versus Wade thing, or the whole abortion thing, was like no abortions at all, or abortions whenever you want. But then when you read it, they kind of break it down like, okay, the first trimester, we're not going to get involved at all. You can do whatever you want. Yeah. The second trimester gets a little bit more, touchy on health.
Because the fetus is more developed.
Yeah. And then the third trimester, it's like, just like you're already 7 months in basically by then.
Pretty much.
And so it's kind of, and that's what kind of gets me, because it's like, as a woman, I'm not a woman, right? Obviously, but as a woman, I would assume like you should already have a decision in your mind whether to keep a baby by 7 months in, you know what I mean? Like there should
but you're gonna give birth pretty soon. So
so it's kind of crazy to think like you want to have an abortion so late. You know
I
what
mean,
I mean?
I've heard people say that people want to use abortion as like a birth control or just for the, for the fun of it, and it's not a
Whoa.
fun decision. It's not a means of birth control. It's a lot of women decide to not keep a child because it's just not. Some women are mothers. Some women, a majority of women are already married with kids when they decide that they cannot bring another child into the world. When, I mean, I have a kid, so by the time I was 7 months, I was pretty much, this is my child. But the first few weeks, it was a conversation, and it was a thought because I hadn't quite finished school yet. Financially, I wasn't in the, best place that I wanted to be. So it was a thought, but me and my husband talked about it, and we decided to go ahead and go through with it. So yeah, by 7 months, that was our baby. So
Yeah. It's kind of weird to think. I don't
I
know.
don't
This
think
just,
that would really happen.
yeah, even just in my opinion, like even 5 months seem like
Yeah,
it's too
just-
long, right?
You're
Like,
already showing.
Yeah.
It's like when you go to the doctor and have the ultrasound, it looks like a baby. So it's like you already start to get the thought that that's your child.
Yeah, and would you like this is going to go in a little too more of a spiritual type of thing, but
Yeah.
you can kind of start feeling a connection the longer you get
definitely.
into. Would you
Definitely.
agree? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the Roe versus Wade, ladies and gentlemen. What happened like in 1973, right? It was later, these women abortion rights started to eventually evolve, right? Later on in time. And so the second one that comes in is the Planned Parenthood versus Casey. And this happens in 1992. And I'm going to update you guys on what goes on in this. So this is basically like adding onto the Roe versus Wade, which we learned about, right? So this is how it starts, right? This is what it says. The case arose from a challenge to 5 provisions of the Pennsylvania Abortion Control Act of 1982. Among the provisions were requirements for a waiting period, a spousal notice, and for minors, parental consent prior to undergoing an abortion procedure. So what that's telling us is that during the Roe versus Wade appeal and success, that you could be a minor and get an abortion without consent from your parents. You can get an abortion without talking to your spouse. What was the other one that they mentioned? There was no waiting period. Or was there a waiting period? Like, what was the waiting period? There's no clarifications, right? So I find that all very interesting, right? And it continues on. In plurality opinions jointly written by Sandra Day Connor, they start naming people from the Supreme Court, upheld the essential holding of Roe, which was the due process clause of the 14th Amendment, protects a woman's right to choose to have an abortion prior to viability, which means viability is basically like seeing how well the fetus is formed in the body, right? So there's trying to say, hey, there's a certain amount of time that you should be able to have an abortion, right? The court overturned the Roe trimester framework, which we read earlier, which was like 1 trimester this, 2 trimester that, 3 trimester, not at all, right? The court overturned the Roe trimester framework in favor of a viability analysis, which means to see how far developed, again, the fetus is, thereby allowing states to implement abortion restrictions that apply during the first trimester of pregnancy. The court also replaced the strict scrutiny standard of review required by Roe with the undue burden standard, under which abortion restriction would be unconstitutional when they were enacted for, in quotes, here it goes, the purpose or effect of placing a substantial obstacle in the path of a woman seeking an abortion of a non-viable fetus. So what that's saying is that they're saying it's illegal to not allow a woman to have an abortion if the fetus is not like fully developed and stuff like that. It's illegal not to give it to her, right? Which would be like in the first trimester, is what they're saying. So applying this new standard of review, the court upheld 4 provisions of the Pennsylvania law, but invalidated the requirement of spousal notification. So if you want to have an abortion, you're a lady, you don't have to notify the person that basically is half owner. I would say half owner of the baby. You don't have to notify them. Which for me, I'm going to get into that with Nelly right now, we're going to get into that, right? So 4 justices wrote or joined opinions arguing that Roe versus Wade should have been struck down, while 2 justices wrote opinions favoring the preservations of the high standard of review for abortion restrictions. And so that's basically the Pennsylvania Planned Parenthood versus Casey. What's your thought on that, on the updated one?
I mean, it kind of still sounds about the same. I do feel that depending on the relationship that you do have with the child's father, it's still up to the woman to decide to let them know or not. It depends, and I'll get into it also. I'm kind of speaking on like personal experience on that aspect, but it just hands down is just up to the woman. The part of like the minors not letting know the parents, I mean, I kind of see why, because it is the minor's body, but they're still minors.
Yeah.
So I feel like in that case, I have a daughter now. So whether my daughter decided to, if something happened to her or whatever, whether she decided to keep the child or not, I think I would want to know, but because I would want to be there for her.
Of course.
Not because I would want to control her decision or anything. That one's a little iffy, but at the same time, I mean, it's a very personal choice. And this whole abortion thing, it just goes way back too. Just because they are going to try to ban abortions doesn't mean they're going to stop. They, even in the earlier 1900s and all of that, they had, secret abortion clinics, and they were not safe. And a lot of the times women would not make it. They would die. So taking away that right from, women, and it's just going to make it more dangerous. It's not going to make it go away.
Yeah. And we'll definitely get into like the statistics of safe abortions and everything like that. But yeah, I wanted to touch on, the spousal, non-approval, right?
Yeah.
And I think I agree with you. It depends on the relationship that the woman has. It could be like you had a one-night stand with this person,
Right.
and now you're
What if
pregnant.
you're not in touch with them anymore?
Yeah, you're not, then I understand. But like, say if you're like in a relationship with someone,
No, yeah.
then I think he definitely needs to have a conversation. I think at least deserve the respect.
At least to let them know.
Yeah, at least deserve the respect of the conversation.
Even if the man does want the child, if the woman's not ready, I mean, maybe they could talk about it, and maybe the woman will feel a little more comfortable after the conversation to keep the child. But at the same time, it's like at least to let them know that what's going on. So yeah, out of respect.
At least the respect for that, like it's, if you can have sex, you could at least have the conversation about what should we do after it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And going back to like the minor thing, like you said, like if you had if your daughter's 16 and then like she's pregnant, like you would definitely want to know.
And that depends, I think, also on the relationship that you build with your kid, though.
100%.
Because hopefully, if it all goes well, it depends on my daughter's personality too. She's only going to be 2, but I hope to build a relationship strong enough where she's not scared of me, where she will come to me for whatever, that she needs. My relationship with my mother, I wouldn't have felt comfortable going to her with something like that. So I don't want to have that relationship with my daughter. I want her to be able to tell me things, not to control her, not to try to convince her to do this or that, but just so she knows that she's not alone.
Gotcha.
Basically.
And she'd be comfortable around you.
Comfortable, not scared of me, comfortable.
Yeah. And so that's going back to relationships again, right? Like all of this is basically based off of relationships, right?
Yeah.
Like relationship with the spouse, relationship with the parents, and I guess it's very important to try to have the best relationships you can have with all the people around you, or the closest people around you. So that way, when troubled times like making a decision to have an abortion or not,
Right.
you have someone to go to, right? Because I can't imagine how many women and young ladies out there had no one to talk to except for a doctor, right?
It's scary.
And was by themselves, like I can imagine how emotional that is, how hard that is. And we feel for you. I definitely, even from this side of the gender, I feel for you. Like that's not easy at all. It's super tough, right?
I mean, the reason why I feel so like strongly about it, it's a touchy subject, but I don't really mind talking about it. It happened to me. Like my daughter's 2, it happened to me 5 years ago. I was in a very abusive, traumatic relationship, and it was on the verge of ending. And I found out I was pregnant. And just a month prior to that, the relationship was so bad, I ended up in a mental hospital. Like the 5150, like I couldn't be released for 3 days. So putting all that into perspective, when I found out, I was like, do I really want to bring a child into this world? I'm not okay. I'm sleeping on my mom's couch. I'm not even done with school yet. I haven't even started going back to college.
Yeah.
The, the potential father of the child abusive. I just didn't feel right bringing a child into this world with that type of environment at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful and grateful that I had the choice to be able to go through with that on my own and make that decision for myself. At the time, I did not let him know that this is where we're talking about the whole relationship thing, because the relationship wasn't there. I don't feel like he had the right or he deserved that privilege to know that potentially we could become parents, because the relationship was not there. And making that decision was not easy. And I'm very grateful that I had the choice.
Yeah.
But I did tell myself, and I'm a spiritual person, and I asked that unborn child, hey, you know what? Right now, it's not a good time. If you still want me to be your mommy, come back. Let me get it together. Let me get my life together. And I literally did that. I finished school. I met a wonderful man and my now husband. And a few years later, without planning, because my birth control failed that time, I had my daughter. So it's like, it just happened when it needed to happen. And I'm glad that I had that choice, because, I was substance abusing. I wasn't okay. I was not okay mentally, spiritually, physically, none of that. So it gave me time to recover and to work on myself. And had I not had that choice, I can't say what that baby would have gone through if I would have brought that child into this world. So
facts. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing. That's probably gonna help a lot of people, and thank goodness that you were at least, you said, you went and you committed yourself, but at least you still have the sanity to say, like, you know what, this is not good for this baby.
It's because to me, just growing up, like it's hard out here, and bringing another human being into this world, like it's not, oh, they're so cute, all babies. No, it's a commitment for life, and it's not a joke. And you have to be at least somewhat, even if you're not financially stable, at least stable up here to be able to bring a child into this world. It's a serious thing for me. So years later, when I found out I was pregnant again, I was like, I think we could do it. I think we could finally, I was married. I was definitely a lot more stable. So yeah, it was just, I'm glad I had that choice, because I'm doing so much better. Me and my husband are able to give my daughter the love she deserves, the care she deserves. And again, if I had not had that choice, who knows where I would be right now.
Wow. Amazing. So we're going to continue on, right, to why we're talking about abortion right now. Abortion's been a conversation for a very long time, right? But there's something happening currently, and we're in the year 2022, for those of you guys who don't know. 2022, we're in the end of May. And so next month, very soon, we're going to be hearing more about this topic, and then in July as well. And the reason why is because there's a case called Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization. And I'm going to read you what's going on about that. And there's a pending U.S. Supreme Court case about the constitutionality of a 2018 Mississippi state law that bans most abortion operations after the first 15 weeks. So you're basically into your fifth month. Yeah, you're already going into that, right? Of pregnancy. And so that's what's going on. And so the shift of, and then so it continues on here. It says the shift of the ideology of the Supreme Court, though the 2020 appointment of Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who was outspoken against abortion before her appointment. So this is saying that a woman, before she became a justice, was already against abortion. I wanted to make that clear for you guys right there. So not all women are for abortions, right? Free will, free mind. So I just wanted to bring that clear to you guys, right? And so Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who was outspoken against abortion before her appointment, which was before she was in to become a justice, made Dobbs a potential vehicle to challenge both Roe versus Wade and Casey, right? And so she's using this, they're saying that she's using this Dobbs versus the Jackson's Women's Health Organization to fight against the Roe versus Wade, which we talked about, and also the Casey one with the Planned Parenthood, right? And so what happened on May 2nd, 2022, a leaked document happened saying that they might ban or destroy the Roe versus Wade, right? And I'm going to read you one of the things that one of the justices said, okay, about the leaked document and everything like that, okay? And this is from CNN. This is from CNBC, right? And it says, Chief Justice John Roberts noted that the first draft, which is the not official decision made about the abortion, penned by conservative Justice Samuel Alito and reportedly circulated in February, does not represent a final decision in the case. And this is what it says. In his 98 draft opinion, Alito looked to the history of abortion policies, and this is very important. He goes to the history of abortion policies in the U.S. And he goes on to say, abortion is not a constitutionally protected right, Alito wrote, pointing out that the Constitution itself makes no reference to abortion. While he acknowledged that the court has interpreted the 14th Amendment to guarantee some rights that are not explicitly spelled out, Alito cited precedent stating that those rights must be deeply rooted in U.S. tradition and not implicit in the concept of ordered liberty, right? So he's saying, like, it's not saying this is specifically about abortion. It needs to be more specific about what they're saying. And then it quotes on saying this about him. This is what he says, actually quoted. The right to abortion does not fall within this category, going back to the 14th Amendment. Alito's draft said, up until the later part of the 20th century, there was no support in American law for a constitutional right to obtain an abortion. Zero, none. Then the article continues. The justice wrote that abortion was outlawed in 3/4 of the states at the time the 14th Amendment was adopted in the 1860s, and that 30 states had banned the procedure at all stages of pregnancy at the time Roe was argued before the court. So I'm just going to stop there. Nelly, what's your thoughts on all that information from Judge Alito?
I mean, I just feel like we need to address also the reasoning why people believe why they're against abortion a lot of the time, at least from what I've been listening to people say, the experience that I've seen, it's religious. It's religious views. A lot of people want to put, I respect everyone's beliefs. The thing is that not everyone believes what they believe. And a lot of these people, from what I've noticed, they're like, the old school, traditional, conservative type of way of thinking. And that's fine. What I've always said is, like, if you don't like abortions, then don't have one. Totally fine.
Yeah,
but
simple.
That doesn't give you the right to dictate, based off your beliefs, to dictate what other people can do or not do with their own body. That's the thing. That's the big argument right now. It's like, if that's your beliefs, cool. But you don't get to dictate what other people get to do or not do.
Yeah.
Like,
very true.
I don't know.
You're 100% right.
It's like, I don't know how hard is it to understand. I think a lot of people are just so stuck in their ways too. A lot of us sometimes have a hard time admitting when we're wrong, or admitting when we kind of have to change our way of thinking because it doesn't serve us or it doesn't serve the collective anymore. A lot of people don't like to admit it. So they want to stay stuck in their ways and stuck in their traditional viewpoints. Even though maybe deep down inside they kind of know that it's wrong, that change scares people. So I think that's another argument that we could have, that some of these belief systems are very outdated and a lot has changed, and we have progressed a lot as a society. And it's just, to me, it's common sense, but some people just don't.
They don't see it as
common.
They
don't see it.
Yeah.
They don't see it.
I agree with you, right? And everything like that, right? So as we all know, United States is becoming more of a brown country, more of a colored country, right? And so I've heard this, and you can look at statistics as well. And so Caucasians and white people, their race is kind of dwindling down, and because they're having abortions. So this is just, take it how you want to take it. So this is a way to prevent from the Caucasian race, white people, from decreasing in numbers, is by making them not have abortions.
What is it called? I just saw something about it. It's but they're afraid that they're going to be outnumbered.
Yeah.
It's a thing. So they want more, like
babies.
Yeah, more babies.
Yeah.
There's so many factors that go into it. There's not a lot of people are having kids, if any, or they're only having like one or two. Then the workforce later on, there's not going to be enough workers to keep the capitalistic society that we live in going. That's one thing. Another thing is that a lot of the people argue, well, if you don't want to have the kid, then give him up for adoption. They fail to look at how much abuse, how much things kids go through in the system. There's plenty of cases, plenty of people talking about their own experiences of being trafficked while being in the foster care system.
Yeah.
And they only want fresh babies. They want newborn babies. They don't want, as soon as the kid, that's why it's like the pro-life thing. You're only pro-life up until the kid is born. After that, they're very much against, people getting assistance from the government when they need it.
Yep.
Actually investing more, time and money into the well-being of these children, mental health, programs that will help the parents raise their kids, programs that will help the kids. They're very much against that. So what it boils down to is just that wanting to control, just that power, that wanting to control what women do with their bodies. It's not really about the children, because if it was, these children wouldn't be suffering as much as they do after they're born, that's why I'm like, you're not pro-life, you're only pro-birth.
Yeah. And I like that's a good argument. It's like they're pro-life until the child's born.
Mm-hmm. Then after that, it's like, it's not my problem, that's your kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Deal with it. Mm-hmm. And you're so right. And that's a whole different topic about the foster care system. Yeah. That's a whole different beast.
And like you said, the whole, we can't ignore it, the white supremacy in this country. As much as you want to say it doesn't exist, as much as you want to say that racism is not a thing, you don't see color, the simple fact that people don't want to see that there's racism and all, it's a problem within itself. And the ones that suffer the most, the majority of the time, are kids of color, people of color. Those are the ones that end up in the system. Those are the ones that end up, the parents end up struggling financially to keep up with taking care of their kids. And it's just, there's statistics to prove that. It's everywhere. It's the truth. It's facts. You can't argue with that.
Yeah. There's like 3,800 or a huge number of missing Black girls and women of color right now as we speak.
Indigenous.
Yeah. Missing currently.
Where did they go?
Currently, right? And so going back to like the abortion thing and white women, they're saying another topic and belief is that they're doing it so that way they can have more white women not have abortions and keep the kids coming out, right, in the family.
They want to keep the country white,
or keep their numbers up at least, And so it's very interesting. These are very interesting topics, but I like that topic about pro-life until the child's born, because that is a fact. That is a super fact.
Because the same ones that advocate for the pro-life are the same ones that are against government assistance, again, like any type of help for the people that need it. And then another thing that's a little bit off topic to what we're talking about, but the sad thing that happened in Texas, the shooting. Where are all the pro-lifers fighting for the children that are losing their life because of gun violence? Where are you? You're very silent. I haven't really heard anything. But when it comes to talking about controlling women's bodies and controlling what they do or do not do, they're very loud. And that's the thing that irritates me about, people that don't want to see the bigger picture. And at the end of the day, the people that it's hurting the most are children in this country. Yeah, they're the ones hurting the most.
Super facts. The
ones they're advocating for are the ones that are being hurt the most.
Gotcha. And for those guys who may not know, was it about last week or
like 5 days ago? 4 days ago?
5 days ago, there was a shooting at a Texas elementary school. Was it elementary school? An elementary school. Was it a middle school or a high school? It was an elementary school, right? And about, was it 12 to 16 kids?
It was 19.
19.
And 2 teachers.
19 kids, 21 people all lost their lives, right? That's a whole different subject, right? That's a whole different topic. But yeah, what she's saying is absolutely correct. And the reason why this is very important about this abortion thing that's happening, that's going to be dismantling what the rumors are, dismantling the Roe versus Wade that we read and the Casey versus Planned Parenthood. One is that it's going to be at the federal level, right? And if you guys don't understand laws happen at the federal level and the state level. And then, for example, let's think about marijuana, right? You go to California, you go to Colorado, you can smoke your marijuana legally, free in those states. However, if a federal officer sees you smoking or comes after you federally, you're going to federal prison because it's still classified as a level 1 drug, I believe, federally, meaning you can still do serious time for marijuana because federally it says that no, it is not legal. It is illegal, right? And so the same thing applies to this law that's going to be passing federally in the U.S. Supreme Court, right? So in the state of California, they may be okay with you having an abortion or whatever, but in Texas, they're like, no, you can't have it past a certain time, right? So if the federal says, no, you must stick to this trimester rule, then everybody has to stick to that trimester rule. Like they can legally, if someone says, hey, I can do it.
I think an indigenous woman I think it was in Texas too. I'm not too sure what state, but she had a miscarriage and she's serving time for that miscarriage because of the laws in that state.
Gotcha.
It's not even an abortion. It was a miscarriage.
A miscarriage.
Yeah.
For people who don't know what a miscarriage is, can you help let them know what a miscarriage is?
So sometimes people end up losing their baby. It could be, I think, at any point of the trimester, or it could even turn into like a stillbirth. You can be up to the second, third trimester, and then all of a sudden find out that your baby's doesn't have a heartbeat anymore. So sometimes in the first trimester, either there's different forms. There's like something called the ectopic pregnancy, where the embryo doesn't implant itself in the uterus, so it's life threatening for the mother.
Oh wow.
So, or it's just sometimes it just doesn't, the baby doesn't just implant itself properly, so the mother ends up having a miscarriage, which is basically the form of a self-induced abortion that your body does to get rid of, the fetus, the embryo.
Yeah.
And most of the time they're accidents. It just happens.
It just happens, yeah. And it could be like from stress and other things too that can cause
many
it, right?
factors, yep.
Yeah. It's like God's abortion in a way.
Yeah.
If you want to think about it that way. So I'm going to read you guys a couple of things about what would happen if this ban federally or this change in the laws federally would happen to the world, all right? So this is what it says, and this is from Healthline. And again, I'm going to put all this information that I have and put it in the description of the video, description of everything, okay? And it says, without Roe, millions of people will lose the right to a safe, this is the most important thing, a safe legal abortion. According to Guttmacher Institute, 26 states are likely to either ban means no abortions, no matter if you're 1 week in, 1 day in, ban, right? Or severely limit access to abortion, which is similar to Mississippi's 15-week ban. So, basically after your 15 week, you can't get it in Mississippi. And then it says, here's a quotation right here. That doesn't mean some states won't try to go further than what Mississippi has done, which means even less than 15 weeks. But such a state would likely end up back in the courts because it would represent a new question of law than that which is currently before the U.S. Supreme Court, Carter said. 12 states have trigger laws or bans that have been designed to automatically take effect if Roe were to be overturned. So trigger laws means immediately when they hear that law, they're going to go into this. And so it says 8 states have unenforceable pre-Roe versus Wade bans in place that can go in effect. So 8 states have already decided that we're going to go even before Roe versus Wade, which is like...
I think some of them are trying to do like 6 weeks or up until a heartbeat is detected, but sometimes you can't detect a heartbeat up until, I think, 9 to 12 weeks.
Yeah, and it's gnarly, right? 9 states have restrictions that are currently deemed unconstitutional, but could go into effect without the protections of Roe. 11 states have 6 week bans that are currently not in effect. And 1 state, can you know what that state is? Texas has a 6-week ban in effect to this day.
Going around with Texas?
Right? Texas is their own country, right? You love them, you hate them. Hey, Texas, you know what I mean? It's all good, And some states have both bans and trigger laws, right, together, right? And so I'm actually going to read a little bit. I'm gonna come back to this article, but I'm going to read a little bit about what happens if you disobey that law in Texas, right? So and I guess it's called, I think it's the SB 20. I'll go back and look at it. But it says, the law has survived legal challenges because of its unusual structure. Instead of criminalizing the procedure after 6 weeks, it deputizes private citizens to sue anyone who aids or abets the provision of such an abortion, with successful plaintiffs receiving a minimum of $10,000. Do you know what that means, folks? That means, say Nelly here, right? She wants to have an abortion secretly. I know about it. I can go to the feds, rat her out, and the doctor, get a minimum of 10 G's. Get a minimum of 10 G's for her not abiding the 6-week law. Thoughts on that? Guys, it's tough.
Like no comment. It's just they're just really out there on a mission to make it impossible for a woman to just do what they feel right is for them.
Yeah.
They're literally making they want to also if the doctor goes ahead and does it, they can serve time too. They're just trying to make it impossible. They're trying to find any way possible to just have women avoid having an abortions. And again, it goes back to saying, just because they do this doesn't mean they're going to stop. They're just going to have to push women to go and get unsafe abortions instead of keeping them safe.
It's basically like prohibition, right? You can stop the alcohol, but they're going to find a way to get the alcohol.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And I think the more you try to do things like, the more you try to stop something from happening, especially something like that, the more it's going to push people to want to rebel and to not, they're not going to listen. They're just going to find a way to do it.
Facts. And so this brings into question, right? Like, it's not legal statewide, federally for the Texas to do that, right? Because the trimester thing, which we went over, which would be 9 weeks or 12 weeks, how can Texas get away with that if it's not, it's against federally, the Supreme Court? This is what it says in the article. The U.S. Supreme Court has declined to block the law. Basically, it's saying that the U.S. Supreme Court sees that Texas wants to do their 6-week ban, and even though it's a minimum of a trimester, they said, oh, Texas, do you. You're all good. People can't fight against it, And so I'm going to go back into the other thing about the other states, right? I'm going to actually get into what other states that are pro-abortion and allowing, what their voices are saying, right? And so it says 14 states have laws that would protect the right to abortion. So we got how many states are in America? 50 states, right?
Only 14.
All right, so we're saying 14 here, right? And other states like Vermont are considering doing the same, right? Among one of them, California is introducing legislation to support and cover costs for out-of-state residents who come to California to get an abortion. So California is stepping up to at least, we're going to help you find
protect the women
in
case they can come over here.
Even pay, what is it? It's saying support and cover the costs for them to come if they're out of state, right? Well, I guess we're going to wait till the actual law to see if it passes out, but that's what they're saying. Actions speak louder than words, and the pen is mightier than the sword. So we want to see it in writing first, right? You can say all you want, but we want to see it in writing, right? And it says, it says that abortion providers in progressive states have been preparing to care for a surge of patients from states that ban abortion. So they're already expecting like a lot of people.
So they've already been on it, knowing that this is a possibility. So they're preparing.
They're getting prepared for it. Kind of like, a tornado's going to come. You want to prepare your house. They're kind of doing the same thing, right? And it says in Illinois, for example, Reproductive Health Services, RHS, of Planned Parenthood of St. Louis region opened a clinic near the Illinois-Missouri border to help Missouri-based patients coming to Illinois. So at least there's some states
that are trying to come through and just show support just in case other states, as they should.
Yeah, which is super wild, right?
Yeah.
Like it makes you think like how has this gone so far? Like, how has it gone so crazy? And it's like, Like we have more important things people to worry about, like
Oh,
food,
definitely.
shelter, and
And then
water.
another thing right now too, the formula shortage. So you mean to tell me that you want to force women to have these children and there's a nationwide formula shortage for these kids, and I don't want to hear nothing about breastfeeding and all of that because I tried it and it's not easy. Like some women stop producing enough milk for their baby, so you have to supplement with formula.
Yep.
And you want to force these women to have kids and there's not even food to feed these children. Like that's what we should be worried about. Like you said, like food, the cost
Shelter.
of living right
Yep.
now, it's ridiculous. That's another thing. You want to force us to have more children, yet we can barely make our rent every month. We can barely put food on the table. These are all you just don't have kids and then that's it. No, there's so much that goes into it. So how about let's fix the structure and the foundation of this country first. And then once that's taken care of, maybe we'll want to have kids. Maybe we'll want to bring more children into this world.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we're worried about the wrong things. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And it definitely, it's definitely grabbing a lot of people's attention. It's grabbing a lot of people's attention, this abortion talk, because it's, like I say, it's going to be affecting a lot of people. And we talked about safe abortions earlier, right? And so I'm going to read another article here. Again, this is all information I will be putting into the bio, right? It says in the United States, and this is very important, the mortality rate of legal abortions is fewer than one death per 100,000 abortions. And this is low. This is much lower than the mortality rate from abortions in countries where there are more restrictive laws. So just those two sentences alone tell you that by having safe abortions, more women survive, as opposed to in countries where they're really strict about abortions and women have to search for unsafe abortions, which take their lives.
Take their lives or end up being infertile. And what if they did want a family later on in their life and they're not able to do so because they didn't have access to a safe abortion? Now they ruined their reproductive system because they were forced to go seek, medical help that wasn't safe for them.
Yeah.
It ruins their chances if they ever did want to have a child.
Yeah. So it's going back to like the emotional stress that a woman has to go through, just making a decision to go through abortion, all the things in the aftermath. It's very serious. It's very serious. And so the article continues saying, according to the World Health Organization, each year, 4.7 to 13.2% of all maternal deaths can be attributed to unsafe abortions. Access to safe legal abortions, as with timely access to healthcare in general, can prevent unnecessary complications and death. But in many communities, both locally and globally, strict regulations have impacted the safety of people seeking the procedure, as have other barriers to access like transportation and financial challenges. Those of us, this is the medical doctor speaking, those of us in the medical community have been focused on improving Black maternal health, but the potential overturn of Roe versus Wade would be indirect opposition to this goal, as the effects of this ruling would disproportionately impact people of color.
Yes.
So what's really important about this whole decision is that not only is it taking like the rights away of having a safe abortion, but it's mostly impacting women and communities that don't have the money. Yeah, low income communities are going to be suffering the most from this.
Yes.
Right.
And then how it's just there's so much to it because let's force these women to have kids, but then what's that gonna do? A lot of these women are single mothers. Then both parents have to work. Then you're absent from this child's life, and then they have to raise themselves, and then that also causes harm to the child as they grow up because they don't have their parents around, because their parents are forced to work 1, 2, 3 jobs each to be able to provide. And then what does that do? The child grows up without any nurture, without any love, not because the parents don't love them, but because they're forced to, have to take care of their kids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's just a lot of the times too, there's like the unfortunately, there's many people that aren't really fit to be parents. So those children suffer too. If if those people are forced to have kids, then those children are also going to suffer, because sometimes people are not fit to be parents. And it goes back to the same thing. Why are we forcing anyone to have children if they are not fit, or if they don't feel ready, or they just don't want kids? It shouldn't be a topic of debate what a woman decides to do or not. Like,
yeah.
Again, it just goes back to the children are the ones that end up suffering.
In the end, yeah. You think it's the parent, but it's really the children. If the parent can't really afford to take care of that child.
The child's the one that suffers.
Yeah, which is, man, I really love what you said about they're pro-life until the child is born.
It's true, though.
It's so heavy. It's so heavy. And so we just wanted to discuss that with you guys today. Like, we think it's a really important topic to talk about, because it's going to be definitely talked about even more and more and more. And I personally didn't know a lot of this information until I looked into it a little bit more deeper. And, you know, I definitely think it should be a choice. I don't think people should have, control, other people should have decisions over your bodies. I do agree with the trimester thing. I do agree with, if you're in a loving relationship with your spouse, let them know that you want to do it. If you're a lady and you want to do it, talk to somebody that you can trust before doing into it. And above all else, at least we deserve to give these women access to safe abortions.
Right.
Access to safe abortions, right?
Because I hope not, but watch this go through, and the mortality rate of women is unfortunately going to probably go up, because, again, without the access of safe abortions, they're just going to go look for it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep also speaking up, don't have a huge platform and stuff, but I do have a daughter, and I'm also fighting for her rights in the future. And I would hate, God forbid anything ever happened to my baby, but I would hate that she didn't have that choice if something ever happened in the future. So I'm fighting for her too.
Amen. And you got to, the people before fight for the people after. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And again, like, I think the access to safe abortions is at least that, if we're giving people who had opioid addictions safe places for opium. So in the end of the day, folks, if you want to be real, this is about classism. Mm-hmm. People the haves and the have-nots, right? Because the people who are going to be suffering from these illegal, unsafe abortions are going to be Black and brown-skinned people.
Lower class, lower
income people who can't drive to or have transportation to get to a state that does have legal right abortions. So heart goes out to them in the day, you know what I mean? And so, Nelly, is there anything else you want to say?
I mean, we just have to keep talking about these type of things. Ignoring problems never works. Ignoring things that are going on is not going to make it go away. And if you have the power to vote, and if you have the power to speak up, and we have to be supportive of women and their bodies and their choices and the future little girls too out there, because it's going to affect them too someday in the future. And we just can't give up. And I have hope that it might not go through, but we don't know. So we have to keep on. And even if it does, we live in a state where it's, a lot more freer. It's less of a, more of a pro-choice state, but that doesn't matter. We still have to be there for those women in states that don't live in states that are pro-choice. So we just have to speak up and go vote, and, and just show our support.
Yes, definitely. We're currently in sunny California, if you guys are wondering what state she's talking about. We're currently in California. But Nelly, let them know how they can reach you if they want to talk to you more about this stuff, or talk to you about anything, empowerment, or just in general. Let them know how they can reach you.
Well, I actually have my email, we could probably list it in the description, right? If I send it to you.
Of course.
ayalayaneli14@gmail. And I also have a TikTok. I'll send it to him. I think it's Enigmatic Nelly, which I also post videos talking about a variety of subjects. So you could always reach me there, follow me, join the conversation. That's always cool when people actually interact and voice their opinions. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Can you spell out the handle? Your IG handle or your TikTok handle? Can you spell it out?
Let me see. Let me make sure. Let me make sure.
She will make sure, hey, we got to get it right. She going to spell it with 2 S's and 3 P's. And then we going to be like, oh, snap.
Okay, so for TikTok, it's ENIGMATIC Nelly, NELLY.
Got you. You guys got that? All right. Cool. And so just want to thank you guys again for tuning in. Hope this was a serious discussion, you know, and we do serious things here. We do fun things here. We do informative things here. That's how the Empire Podcast works. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment, share. Want to thank Nelly again for joining the podcast. My name's Antonio V. Miles. You know where to find me. It'll be in the description. If you want to support the podcast, The Empire Podcast, Cash App, you know how to do it. Again, I got a book coming out soon called 10 Things That Your Parents Should Have Taught You But Didn't. It's kind of related to the stuff here that we're talking about. So stay tuned. And other than that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you in the next one.
Bye.
Peace.